Hello, hello. Here we are. Welcome to Making a Marketer podcast episode number 10. So here we have our fantastic guest today. A lot of you, I'm sure, who are going to be watching, and we'll give it a second to let people hop on because with the live thing, it gives a notification and stuff. So
always super delayed.
yeah. So and thankfully for people who hop on later, our names are displayed at the bottom, which I always, because my name is there on these lives, I forget to share who I am, and because it's a podcast, it's probably important that I do that. So yes. I'm gonna go ahead and say I'm Megan Powers. You can find me on the Twitter at Megan Powers, and my business is Powers of Marketing.
Very
all
clever.
Right, and I try. I'm blessed. I'm blessed with the name. So, but no, I'm stoked. So our topic today is marketing automation. What is inbound marketing anyway? A lot of people, it sounds so intuitive, right? Like you should just, understand what it is. But so we'll dig into that a little bit more. But I want to introduce our guest today, Will Curran. He is a heavy-duty event prof, #eventprofs. He's founder and owner of Endless Events, also known as the Chief Event Einstein. And he has his own show called Event Icons, which I've been on a couple times. Fantastic weekly show that is on the interwebs. And it's not a podcast, right, Will? It's a webcast.
Yeah, I call it like a live talk show that just happens to be recorded and shared everywhere else.
Right. And you can repurpose all that, which is why part of the reason for this podcast, we do a 1 hour show that's true podcast that we record on Zoom. And then, it's hard to keep listeners if you don't keep putting out content. But I also super busy. So I thought my compromise would be to do a 30-minute live. So then there's some variety too, right? People get to see us and then we pull the audio for the podcast. So this one's just 30 minutes. It always goes by super fast. So hopefully we're gonna get to everything. He's also current president of the Arizona chapter of ILEA, the International Live Events Association. And that's pretty badass. When did you take that on?
Oh, was it 2 years ago? A year ago? Year and a half ago? Yeah, a year and a half ago. So I'm in my second year term of it. Definitely excited to pass the torch, though, for sure. It's been a lot of work and it's been a lot of fun, but I'm definitely ready to have a little bit more free time again.
I hear you. That's the thing. Volunteer jobs are take a lot. Hopefully you have a good crew, a good board that supports you. That for me, whenever I was president of an organization, I always said, or I was like a regional person overseeing them, I always said, like, if you have a great team, being president shouldn't be hard.
Totally.
But it's still time.
It's definitely, I realize that now that I have a good team, but when we first started, it was like two of us. So we were like, okay, let's figure out how to do that. But that's a whole other topic.
Totally. Absolutely. So, and just like your background, I just, for those who don't know, you got your start in events as a DJ, right?
Yeah. Started off DJing backyard parties 10 years ago in high school.
Bar and bat mitzvahs and proms.
And proms and teen events. It used to be like, so people always say, like, wonder how I know so much about Arizona high schools is because I probably did every single high school dance in the whole state. But that's how we hired AV companies. That's how I learned AV and what we do now.
That's so rad. I love that story. That's and you, to me, and I've said this before when I've talked to you or about you, that I just, like, for the longest time, I know you do events. I know you're a production guy, but I'm like, he's a marketer. Like, he is a badass marketer, and I have a lot of respect for what you do. And so I thought it was like you were the perfect guest to have on to talk about this topic today, because I know that you attend the Inbound conference and all that kind of good stuff. So obviously you're super dialed into events, but also to marketing. So when people hear inbound marketing, it sounds, like I said before, a little too obvious to be exactly what it is. Can you tell us what it is, and is it the same thing as marketing automation? Kind of, what's the deal?
Yeah, I think actually marketing automation kind of goes in as a part of inbound marketing. It's definitely overwhelming at first. Most commonly when people hear inbound marketing, they think of HubSpot. Obviously, they're the ones who like invented the term. So usually they stumble upon their site, they look at the cost to have that software because obviously it's a software company, and they go, "Oh my gosh, there's no way I could ever do this. Heck no, I'll stick to what I'm doing right now, or like let me figure out a way to kind of piece it together." But definitely inbound is and I apologize for everyone's part of this. There's a lot of Kool-Aid that has to be drinking to be a part of this like inbound movement. And you'll hear us talk a lot about HubSpot, and it sounds like, hey, that's the only way to do it. It isn't, but it's definitely one of the easiest ways to do it. But it's definitely a mindset for sure in the way you do things. Before, when we were doing marketing, before we really embraced inbound, we had a blog, we did social media, but it wasn't really trackable, didn't have any metrics around it, didn't really have a purpose. It was just a blog, and it was there. And I heard, I knew blogging was important, but I didn't know how it was going to affect my business. But I read Epic Content Marketing, which is a great book if you're looking to get interested in inbound marketing, or as they call it, content marketing. One and the same, very similar. And essentially, they talk about how it's this idea that instead of your customers being out there and you having to go work for it, they come into you. And they request and want to work with you. And that wouldn't everyone want that for sure? Like, why would you ever want to work at a company where you're working to try to get customers? Once you want them to come to you all day long, that sounds like the easiest thing in the world for a marketer, but it obviously takes a lot of work to get to that point. So, prior to inbound marketing, we would cold call, we would hit up all the, get the lists of the book of lists every year and hit up all the businesses, and we would hear about it at an event and try to find the contact information and badger them. And, yeah, sure, you try to add value, but there's a certain point when you're interrupting people where it's not really a value. So way back in the day, I read the book Permission Marketing by Seth Godin. And that book basically talked about how like we need to be in this day and age where people are granting you permission to communicate with them. And that's kind of where inbound really gets, I think, its heart and soul from, is the idea that you're adding value and you're not interrupting people. They're coming to you. So now the way we get leads is people come to our site through, different channels, whether it's social or sometimes even paid ads, which are obviously targeted towards hopefully people that want to see what we're providing. And we provide value. We give away stuff for free, ebooks, blog posts, webinars, the podcast, you name it. And in return, we just ask for your contact information, not in a malicious way. Like a lot of people are afraid to give away their contact information because you're going to get spammed or something like that. We don't spam you. We try to get you to download more content offers. We try to make sure you understand what we do. But the first thing that usually happens is you'll get a call from one of our amazing event team people. Taryn, for example, is one of ours. She's probably watching this right now. Hello, Taryn. And Taryn will call you and say like, hey, I saw you download this. Why'd you download it? What do you need help with? Can I point you in the right direction of what you need? Not like point you in the right direction of the services that we provide, but just like, how can I give you more value? Let me get you more content. Let me get you this and that, and just try to add value. And then hopefully at some point during that process, you go, dang, Taryn, you've been so helpful. By the way, like, what do you guys even do? And then that's when they're giving you permission to start that conversation. That's what inbound marketing and in the inbound like philosophy is all about, is add value and they will come to you. And it's kind of like, I don't mean to get philosophical with it, but definitely karma, right? You put good things in, good things come back. And that's how we do it. And it took a long time. That's what a lot of people ask, is like, how long did it take for you to get this? It took us about a year before we started really seeing a good return on it. And, obviously you get your immediate return sometimes, but it definitely took about a year. But now our business runs 100%. All the leads come to us and they all want to work with us. And that's a marketer's dream, I think.
For sure. Yeah. So it's a long play. Like Gary Vee, he talks a lot about that, right? Like, don't give to get. And like, he's not trying to sell you anything. Right. He's just providing value. And he's providing value, and then he obviously is a media icon, so that's like an extreme example. But no, and I had that philosophy when I worked in sales. Even I wanted people to do business with me, but I was, I just wanted to get to know as many people as I could, and I've talked about this before on the show, and like I always was game to meet another supplier, to meet a competitor. I didn't care. Like, first of all, because good, like you say, karma, right? Good things come to those who do good things. And like, you know, they know what I did. And plus people always end up somewhere else, right? Like
Exactly.
the turnover rate in this industry is, of course, not within your organization.
No, not within our organization. But yeah, definitely there's always flexibility. And I think that, you know, when you approach it that way, people end up coming back to you and asking you questions, and you treat it more like a relationship than you do a sales transaction, right?
Right. Fully. Yeah. And that's what I did. For sure. Like I didn't want to seem like a salesperson. So, you mentioned HubSpot, and that's an
Yep.
obvious. So I was curious about like what specifically is it about HubSpot that you really dig?
Yeah, totally. So, you know, people then, I think to follow up, I realized I didn't ask your other question, like how does marketing automation play into this? The whole
Oh, right.
idea behind marketing automation is to essentially do a little bit of work that a salesperson would normally have to do. So you can spend wiser time with the salespeople, right? Take someone who maybe you only get their email address because they subscribe to an email, and how do you get them to eventually give you your first name, last name, and phone number, and eventually find out some information maybe about their budget or how qualified they are. It does a little bit of that work for you, essentially.
Okay.
The reason why I dug what HubSpot did, well, first, I remember like way back in the day when HubSpot first started, and I didn't even know what they were doing. And it's probably, again, I probably looked at the cost and was like, whoa, this is so expensive. But it read Epic Content Marketing and kept talking about this idea behind understanding the ROI of your content and what you're creating. And what I realized is that I had no way of tracking that before. We wrote a blog post, we posted a ton on social media, and yeah, we saw our visits go up, but did that customer come from it? Did that person end up buying because of it? And I couldn't answer that question. And I knew it was going to be the wave of the future and how everyone was going to do things and how I bought things primarily. I always talk about that. Like it always came from personal experience. I bought based on research I do with content. And I had no way of, you know, tracking that. If I was going to invest money into more blog writers and people to host this, do social media and creating a podcast, for example, like if I wanted to do any of those things nowadays, I would have had no idea how to measure the ROI. And HubSpot basically kept talking about in this book is HubSpot's a great tool to do that. And I was like, all right, I got to see what this tool is all about. And then I looked at it, and the core of what it does is it's a suite of tools. It's not just your blogging software like WordPress. You know, it's also publishing social media. It's also your analytics tool. It's your places Google Analytics. It also does all your email automation. It does all your landing pages for people to sign up. It does like they try to become like the, no pun intended, the hub of everything that you do, right? And I think that's you know, most of the time I would say I don't like tools like that because it means that you can't, it's master of none, you know, jack of all trades thing, right? But I think one thing HubSpot strives to do is to provide the best tools possible because they use it for their own, you know, uses, which is really rare. I can't, you'd be so surprised how many softwares out there don't even use their own stuff to provide what they're doing. So I wanted to use a tool, and at the core of what it is a suite of everything brought together. But when you bring all that together, all the data is in one place, and you can get that ROI data. And one of my favorite things it can do is because the way the tool works is that someone submits like a form, for example, you know, puts in the first name, last name, phone number, email address, hits submit. It does something everyone finds this really creepy, but to be honest, if you use it in the right way, it's not creepy. What it does is you submit the form, it puts a cookie in your browser, just like as if you logged in a site, and then it tracks your IP address. And when it knows it has the cookie and the IP address for what you're doing, it can identify that as you moving around the site, going to this page, watching this video. And that was incredibly important to us because we had very high ticket price for our events. And you know, we couldn't just look at things broadly, right? Like, oh, how much revenue is brought in broadly by blog posts? No, I need to know, did that one blog post bring in that gigantic client? Let me invest more in that blog post. And I wanted that micro transactional kind of data, and it gave it to me. So I can see as you're moving along the site, what you're doing. And I don't do it in like a creepy way. I do it to help us help you better. If I can see what blog posts you're looking at, I can know what you're looking for and give you more tools that are like that. And that's been really insanely powerful for us. So that's one reason why I love what it is. Plus, the big thing I think that it provides that they don't really sell is the training and the education that they do. They're the biggest, essentially, marketing software company in the world. So they have all the data from their site, and they give all that data back. So then that way you're using the right tools. For example, I was actually talking to someone HubSpot today, and I said, you don't realize it because you're using this tool and you think they're designing it just based on what their customers want or this and that. No, they're designing it based on how they use it and what's going to help them most. For example, they created a tool that does the pop-ups, right? Where it says like, hey, download this piece of content. And those were right around the time they announced it. They were like, hey, Google's going to start penalizing sites that do that. And I was terrified. I was like, oh my gosh, like, how are you, HubSpot? How are you guys going to make it so you're not being penalized by Google? They're like, we're not worried about it. The data on our site shows that it's not going to be affected. They're getting like 4 billion views a year. They've seen the data on how it works. And then I said, well, one weird thing about this pop-up is that it pops up and you have to hit the button to get the form to pop up and say, like, put in their email address. You have to hit subscribe, then you can get the email form. And I was like, well, that's one extra step. Doesn't that hurt conversion rates? They said, no, based on what we saw with our millions of page views, if you click the button, then they put their email address, it converts higher than if the email address pop-up just shows. And that blew my mind. It made me realize, like, they really do design their tools around what's going to work best, not just what's cool, shiny, trending, all that sort of stuff. So
right, they're doing the testing for you, essentially.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah. And you kind of get it for free. I mean, relatively, you're paying for the software, obviously, but most other places you'd have to get that empirical understanding of how to use the tool better from, an agency or something like that. Here, they're coming out with blog posts that show you how to use the tools the best way. And that's amazing.
Yeah, for sure. I wish on my wish list of those pop-ups would that it would know already if I was subscribed. Because it bugs me when I go to the same site I've been to 100 times and it still asks me every time. I'm like, no.
And that's where the smart content. I mean, HubSpot can do that.
Okay. It's just how you set it up. You have to set it up right.
Because you're cookied and tracked. As long as you don't clear your cookies and switch to a different computer and a different internet connection, it will know that that's you. And in theory, it should be smart enough to know, right? But yeah, you'd be surprised how many people don't even simply put that, say like, hey, known contacts, let's stop popping up. And to be honest, I think that's a new update feature with their what's called their lead flow tools that you could probably do. So yeah, definitely providing smart content personalization is like huge.
Hey, what about GDPR?
Oh, so I don't know a ton about GDPR. So ironically, I'm going to be hosting a webinar very soon on it. So I'm doing my research now, but I don't know a ton.
I have you on my show so I can learn from you. You have people on your show. So yeah, it just strikes me that that's going to be a big, they're going to have to make their site more compliant to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the biggest thing though is just like, don't do it with malintent and make sure that your people understand what they're getting into. And that's like the biggest things that you can do is make sure that people understand kind of what they're getting into. And I think that ultimately my hope is that if you're not coming from a malicious place, everything should be fine. Just make sure that you're always coming out with a good intent. Again, be helpful, don't be harmful. We'd like, cold calling originally probably was a good thing. People were actually giving good value, right? Ads on TV were a good thing. They were providing new opportunities for people to see new products, but then it got abused and became malicious. And what do they say? Marketers ruin everything, right? Ruining everything.
Yeah. So did you look at any tools other than HubSpot, or did that book just sell you?
Yeah, so we were first looking at the software. We were already using a bunch of different tools to do a bunch of different things. They just didn't really quite connect perfectly. So, for example, like we were using Google Analytics to track our visits and see what pages were popular. We were using Buffer to do our social scheduling. We're using CoSchedule to like plan out our blog posts and everything like that. Nowadays I'd probably be using like XYZ tool to measure my keywords and, doing my content scheduling. I probably would be using like Lead Pages to do my lead pages. I would be using, this software to do that. I have a separate CRM and, it adds up. And that's where I kind of did the math is I knew this tool had a couple things that I wasn't already paying for that I didn't have. I didn't have a landing page tool. I didn't have any sort of way to learn conversion tracking, all that sort of stuff. And I really didn't know how to use Google Analytics to get the data that it was providing. And so I kind of did some math and just realized like $50 a month here, $100 a month here, $15 a month here, it adds up and it gets towards that. We were at the pro plan when we first joined, but if you don't have a lot of traffic, you can start off on that. The plan below, I think it's called the basic plan, and you can start off. And now they have free tools and more inexpensive tools. I mean, geez, I wish HubSpot had been doing its model what it's doing now when I first got started. But there's a good way to get like your foot in the door. And we had tools like that, but the important thing was none of it communicated with each other. I couldn't see that Joe Schmo watched this blog post, converted through this CTA, this call to action, download this ebook, then came back to the page, got this email, opened up this email, and like none of it communicated well with each other. And there might be more tools that are that can do stuff like that now. And obviously there's other marketing automation tools too, like Marketo and Pardot and everything like that. But for me, I loved what HubSpot was all about, and I loved about like the movement that they were trying to provide, because they were walking their walk and talking their talk, and I loved that, and that was one reason why I kind of ended up going that route.
Right on. So you can schedule social posts from within.
Yeah, actually, yesterday was a really exciting day for everyone in my social team, because they actually are one of the first people to have Instagram scheduling, like native Instagram scheduling, which before, obviously like up until about, I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, you could only do like the pop-up. It would remind you to post it and everything like that.
Schedule,
now they open up their API to do scheduling, but now HubSpot has it integrated natively into it. And they're like they're called like a Facebook preferred partner for marketing. So like they're going to get a lot of really cool things for Facebook. Like for example, you can sync your audiences for your Facebook ads automatically, which is really cool. You can also like sync the lead ads that are coming in automatically. You don't have to use Zapier to connect them, which is really, really cool. And I think it's because HubSpot takes it so seriously about using the data the right way and not spamming people, that people say, okay, like we want to work with a company like that. And I'm really excited about the Instagram scheduling. I'm just waiting for Instagram to eventually make it so you can put links in the descriptions of photos, and then life will be complete.
Yes. I was just talking about that today on a discovery call with a client. I said, well, one day we'll get more than one link in Instagram.
Right.
You won't have to see the link in bio. Yeah.
And so I think we will get there, but the thing that's interesting is they always say, again, marketers ruin everything. So like right now, Instagram's great because marketers can't ruin it. You had to like individually post the pictures. You had to do stupid things like reminders to schedule. And I think the second that you can put a link in a description, like you're gonna see Instagram go from being like 90% users and a little bit of brand to being like 90% brand, 10% users, and everyone's gonna be flocking to it. But that will be an exciting day, I think, for traffic. My big theory, I know you didn't ask this, but my big theory about like social channels is that social channels should be only used to drive back to your owned properties, your website, your blog, that sort of stuff. So it was really hard for me for a while. We were not investing in Instagram. Now it's at the point where like Instagram has such a critical mass compared to any other social network that if you're not using it, I feel like the day comes when that linking ability does come that I will be too far behind. So I'm kind of playing the long play of, okay, right now I'm pushing tons of money into graphic design, creating these custom graphics and things like that, in the hopes that when they allow it to finally do links, we'll have, 100,000 subscribers or 100,000 followers, that when we post an image, it's going to drive back 1,000, 2,000 visits back to our site. So that's my big thing here with social publishing. Yeah, go ahead.
You are also doing something that's extremely visual. Why aren't you posting tons of pictures about the events that you do?
Yeah, I mean, it's mainly because we don't take good pictures at our events. I'll be honest, like we are so in depth, like into our events that like a lot of times we don't think about like having a nice camera to take a cool picture and things like that. We're just like, I'm my Google Pixel XL and I'm like, oh, hey, this looks really unique and special. I'll take a picture of it. And then that's like the only picture I ever take of the event. And it's like of our technicians goofing off or something like that, having fun on site. But yeah, we've talked a lot about it. Like our whole goal was to get consistency first. And then now we're going to talk about like, how do we expand that more? Maybe go from doing 1 post a day to 2 times a day. Again, like it's definitely one of those things where it's like, I just want him to make it so we can drive traffic back to the site somehow. And I would be really, really happy. But yeah, the stuff that we're doing so far has been really, really good and really exciting to see where it goes in the future for sure.
Yeah, Instagram is not a platform where you need to post multiple times a day. In fact, you can totally get away with posting 4 to 5 times a week because of the way the algorithm works. So people are following you, they're going to see it. You're seeing stuff that's 6 days old right now and a week old.
It's wild. And that's what I'm realizing too, is like,
Yeah.
like it's making it hard for me because I'm very much, believe it or not, with how tech savvy I am, I'm very much like, I don't have any social networks as my home screen, because like I'm the guy who, like, if it's on my home screen, I'll click on Instagram and be like scrolling through it every single day. And I just realized, like, me as a human being can't take that personally.
So, little ADD, shiny,
the shiny ADD for sure. Yeah. So like, Slack's the only thing that gets to distract me these days.
Oh, Slack. So you kind of already answered this, but what my next kind of question was, how's content marketing different than social media? Basically, social media is the vehicle, right? That helps you drive the traffic to your content, or gets you seen.
Exactly. I see social as purely a way to get people to your site. Like anytime, like, we're starting to invest a little bit into like Facebook groups and LinkedIn. We've been doing LinkedIn groups for a very long period of time, and it's been really successful for us. But like, I'm always a big fan of that owned versus rented land. And I was witnessed firsthand when we built up like 20,000 likes on Facebook. We were at like 15,000 likes on Facebook, and we'd get like 1,000 thumbs up, and we'd get tons of comments on every single thing we posted natively for free. And then the whole algorithm thing, and they start paying ads were a huge deal. Oh, you want to reach your audience, you got to boost this post. And I was so frustrated. And I was like, I spent time building this audience, and now you're saying I have to rent it back from you? And then I realized, I was like I can't be angry because they fully have control of everything. Right. And that's around the time that we started realizing, like, okay, time to start bringing people back to our site.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, and I preach that a lot when I'm consulting. Like that's a big thing, that we're at the mercy of these platforms. So
you're at the mercy of Mark Zuckerberg, basically.
Pretty much. Yeah. So use them as a tool, but email and websites still remain the number one place to gather people and to get business, for sure. So all right, we're almost done. We only have a few minutes, so I have to figure out what do I ask last. All right, so any new tools, technology, gadgets, or anything that you're pumped about?
Yeah, let's see. I'm looking at my toolbar real quick to see if there's anything I really, really like. Let's see. So like we're a cool tool is, if you don't use it already, it's some way to like track keywords and things like that. This is a highly technical tool, but we're using SEMrush for like a very long period of time. Still love it, but now we're trying out Ahrefs, Ahrefs.com, Ahrefs, and it's a keyword tracking tool, allows you to track backlinks and everything like that. I literally was playing around with it right before I signed up because we're considering switching over, and that's a really cool tool. So if you're doing technical, like if you're in the weeds of marketing, Ahrefs is awesome, and I'm loving that really, really well. Oh, and this is also a huge one. This one is like my favorite tool of the I think it's gonna be my favorite tool of the year, but I found it last month. That's why I wasn't thinking of it. It's Databox, DATABOX. It's like connects to everything and create dashboards. So you can see, like, for example, it connects my accounting software and my marketing software, my CRM, and also Facebook ads. And I can take that data, and this is the best part I've never seen, is you can create data calculations. So for example, I can determine cost of customer based on the number of customers that I have, which comes from my CRM, the cost of ads from Facebook, and the margin coming from my accounting software. So I can multiply those all and move them all around, do some math, and I can show that metric and it over time on Databox, and it's awesome. It can send you daily dashboards, weekly dashboards. I have it set that it sends our dashboards to all of our teams automatically in Slack. It is so cool, and I'm loving it. So I highly recommend Databox for anyone who's trying to have metrics. And if you have a physical office space, I wish we had a physical office space. I would have it on like the big screen every single day when you walk in.
All right. Yeah, that's rad. And the Ahrefs, I get that, man. I used to code HTML by hand. So I know that's the tag in HTML.
People don't know because they never had to write a link ever in their life. So now Ahrefs is Yeah.
All right. Well, see, I told you that was going to go fast.
That went way too fast.
So, but you gave us tons of knowledge bombs, and I really appreciate your time. And I know you have your own show. You know how nice it is when people say yes. So thank you for saying yes to being on with us today. We didn't get a ton of people in the live, but if you're listening on the replay, thank you for rewatching it on Facebook or listening on the podcast. So this has been Megan Powers and our guest Will Curran, and this wraps up episode 10 of Making a Marketer, and we will catch you next time.